to thank, first off, Dr. Pat Hines for this incredible conference and all the work that goes into it. It is a wonderful pulling together of minds. And I want to thank all of you because this is the stuff that really gets me excited. It's a reason why I went into science and engineering. And I missed that in working in the logic-free zone. And it's very inspiring to see where we are today. And I especially want to thank, while I'm here, the student volunteers who are here from New Mexico State University, because I wish this kind of conference was something I could have been a part of when I was studying engineering a number of years ago. I don't have to tell this audience just what a really exciting moment we're in terms of the commercial space industry. And I thought I'd just give you a little bit of perspective on why I believe that New Mexico, with its history, with its resources and current talent, is uniquely positioned to help propel the commercial space industry forward and take advantage of where we are today. As many of you already know, New Mexico has really deep roots in developing space technology and advocating for exploration, which is something I can do from what was just referred to as the logic-free zone. I may use that regularly for the future. And at a time when few Americans really recognize the true potential of things like rocketry, physicist Robert Goddard moved to Roswell. And that's not very far from here, especially as a crow flies or as a rocket flies, to conduct his research in 1930. And he did that because meteorologists recommended Roswell, because of its weather, because its isolation, and frankly because the community had and still continues to have a real respect for privacy. And that provided an ideal location for Goddard's experiments. And while he was there, Dr. Goddard developed the A, K, L, and P series of rocket systems. And he achieved a lot of really important historical firsts. The first use of vanes enabling exhaust to be used for guidance, development and deployment of gyroscopic guidance systems on a rocket, and the first flight in which a liquid-fueled rocket actually broke the sound barrier. And of course, he attracted a lot of attention from places like Germany. Certainly the Germans spied on Goddard, and Wernher von Braun used many of those Goddard technologies in his development of the V-2. After surrendering to the US Army in 1945, von Braun was brought to Fort Bliss and to White Sands Proving Ground. And there he taught rocketry to our Army. He tested the V-2s further, and it really formed the foundation of what became our country's first ballistic missile, the Redstone. But it was a senator from right here in New Mexico, Senator Clinton P. Anderson, who really advocated in that era for the space program and for space exploration. And Senator Anderson was instrumental in championing NASA as chairman of the Senate Committee on Aeronautical and Space Science from 1963 up until 1973. And when you think about it, that was the most active period for government-based space exploration in our history, and it was really the climax of the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. And following the successful missile launches at White Sands Missile Range in 1963, our governor at the time, Jack Campbell, asked President John F. Kennedy, a few years ahead of when it was maybe right, but he asked John F. Kennedy to base the first inland aerospace port in our state. And he created a scientific advisory committee that year whose first task was to prepare a report on NASA's potential use of the White Sands area. As in the last century, New Mexico continues to play a really significant role in both the public and the private development of space technology because we have these invaluable and unique assets and unique capabilities. And whether it's the Space Vehicles Directorate and Space Test Program up the road at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, Spaceport America, the Starfire Optical Range, White Sands Missile Range, NASA, or SpaceX testing, New Mexico helps provide the testing and the operational grounds and assets and experience to deliver the technologies that our country relies on for our national defense, as well as really some of the most adventurous commercial ventures in existence today that all of you have been talking about. In December, NASA is going to test the Orion multipurpose crew vehicle, and Orion's launch abort system was tested right here in New Mexico at White Sands Missile Range. Virgin Galactic is preparing to launch travelers on Spaceship Two, opening the doors to space for civilians right from Spaceport America. And some of our country's most prestigious college and university programs in science and technology are right here in New Mexico. Continuing federal investment in these institutions is helping advance space research and exploration. New Mexico State University's Physical Science Laboratory has been providing engineering and support and has managed NASA's Columbia Scientific Balloon Facility since 1987. 7 missions were launched this summer by CSBF in Fort Summer, New Mexico. And also contributing to more affordable testing in space is NASA's Flight Opportunities Program, which I'm particularly fond of, which you heard a little bit about, and which provides access to microgravity and suborbital flights to test innovative technologies that advance our or enable future missions and uses tested for scientific research, technology development, and education. The program has supported the New Mexico Space Grant Consortium Student Launch Program, through which middle school, high school, and university students send their own experiments to space on a competitive basis. And I'm particularly attached to that little middle school piece because we lose so many STEM students at that age. Here in New Mexico, UP Aerospace and Virgin Galactic are providing regular opportunities for academic researchers, for payload developers, and our future scientists and engineers to test their designs in microgravity. And incidentally, UP Aerospace will conduct its 13th launch from Spaceport America this month. During my time serving on the Commerce Committee, I was quite proud to introduce an amendment to the Senate NASA reauthorization bill to expand the development of payloads and flights in that Flight Opportunities Program. In addition, New Mexico is home to several observatories that are doing really exceptional work in astronomical research and in space situational awareness, something that becomes more relevant every day. Observatories like the Very Large Array, like New Mexico Tech's Magdalena Ridge Observatory, the Very Large Baseline Array as well. And NASA's Earth scientists are sending back data on our oceans, on our weather patterns, and our climate, providing the United States with a comprehensive picture of the Earth, even if some of my colleagues choose to ignore the implications of that data on a regular basis. Satellites help us gather military intelligence and provide precision-guided munitions that minimize collateral damage and allow us to keep more of our service members out of harm's way. Our intelligence community space assets keep us safe by detecting nuclear explosions and identifying missile launches, all while keeping a watchful eye on those who would do us harm. And in New Mexico, we house the antenna that download data from NASA and from other satellites, telescopes, and the International Space Station before sharing that information with all those who use it. Through science, technology, innovation, and vision, we've seen firsthand in this state the evolution of the space industry from one that was fully sponsored by, used by, controlled by government to an industry in which governments are special customers and partners. And we see a rapidly growing private commercial space transportation sector. We know how incredibly fruitful and necessary partnerships between government agencies and policymakers, academia, and industry are. These and the collective endeavors of those of you in this room are paving the way for the next wave of human space exploration. Through collaboration, we can continue to drive innovation. And I've always said that the very character of this country, of this nation, has really been shaped by boundless wonder and curiosity. It is the desire to explore that launched John Glenn into orbit, that landed a man on the moon and launched the Hubble telescope, that sent the Curiosity rover to Mars. Designing, building, and launching rockets, carrying sophisticated satellites into precise locations, hundreds or thousands of miles into outer space. It still is sheer rocket science. and we should always be very proud that our nation can do these things. Federal investments in basic research help to support those who take those big risks and develop game-changing technology. And I would argue that those investments have paid off for our country over and over and over again. Not only in direct payoffs, but in inspiring again and again the next generation of STEM leaders. As we experience the dawn of a new era of commercial space travel, I'm here to tell you that New Mexico is positioned to be a leading and enthusiastic partner. After successful exchange of cargo with the International Space Station by SpaceX's Falcon 9 and Dragon, NASA is moving forward with the Commercial Crew Program. Exactly a month ago, NASA announced that it will invest $6.8 billion in Boeing and SpaceX, who I understand we're going to hear from, to continue developing and perfecting their vehicles to facilitate transportation of men and women to and from the International Space Station. Some of that work is supported at NASA's White Sands Test Facility. And SpaceX will be testing out technologies at Spaceport America. In turn, by facilitating the development of several designs with multiple companies, the U.S. government is getting the best technology to meet NASA's rigorous demands. We know how critical it is for us to develop our own transportation to the International Space Station, given, in particular, the recent geopolitical developments with Russia. And of course, this also opens up opportunities for other customers and creating vast new markets. And with transportation to the International Space Station residing with commercial entities, I would argue that NASA can turn its focus to the next phase of exploration. Today, new opportunities for the commercial space industry extend beyond civilian applications with NASA into military and intelligence fields. The Air Force and the intelligence community are opening national security space launches to increase competition, thus broadening the potential number of domestic players capable of handling and being awarded these incredibly delicate missions. Just this year, the National Reconnaissance Office announced a competitive launch, and the current operators of these sensitive launches, Lockheed Martin and Boeing, have been extremely reliable partners for NASA. It's worth mentioning that they've had a 100% success rate, over 88 consecutive successful launches. They've served the program very well. But we are a nation of innovators, and I think we all know that competition not only lowers costs, but it keeps everyone at the peak of their game. SpaceX is one new entrant that's brought new energy, passion, and frankly, a lot of debate into the space industry. The fact that an individual can lead a private company here in the United States to invest and build rockets that deliver assets into space should be something that really represents what's great about this country. Earlier this year, I sent a letter with several of my colleagues to Secretary Hagel in support of increased competition for Air Force launches to allow SpaceX or the next proven upstart company to compete. And recent international events have provided another reason for increased commercial innovation and are a call to action for our entire space industry. With new entrants into space like India and Brazil and South Korea now, we must maintain our technological, operational, and knowledge leadership in the field. And rocky relationships with Russia have rightly made us rethink our reliance on critical assets like the Russian-built RD-180 rocket engine for national security launches. Some have pointed to the years it would take to build a comparable engine here in the United States and the cost to build them. But I think these arguments only serve to prolong inaction and delay a course of action that will eventually make us much more self-reliant. That's why I'm pleased that in Congress we've taken steps to provide the initial funding needed in 2015 to begin that risk reduction and develop a next-generation rocket engine, and I will continue to support those efforts. American companies are fully capable of manufacturing these engines to provide assured access to space for years to come, and doing so would create some inspiring jobs right here in the United States. Just last month, as you heard, United Launch Alliance and Founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, announced that Blue Origin would partner in developing a liquid oxygen, liquefied natural gas rocket engine. We are seeing a number of capable companies stepping up to these challenges, which is frankly great for our national security and great for our tax dollars. I will continue supporting programs that provide resiliency and responsiveness to our entire space architecture. At Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, where, since I see Bill Miera in the audience, I have to say I started my career after college many years ago at his company. We have a program called Operationally Responsive Space. It's a program that seeks to design, build, and launch satellites faster and cheaper. Sometimes I liken it, I noticed in the program, there's an advertisement for a pin that works in outer space. And many of you know the old story about how we spent so much effort trying to get a pin to work in outer space, and the Russians used a pencil. For me, ORS is a little bit like using a pencil. Sometimes you need a pin, but much of the time, you can get things done faster and more effectively and do the job at a much lower cost with 70% of the capability. Currently, more than 60 countries and consortia, as well as untold numerous commercial enterprises and academic institutions, have some operations in space. And when you add those together with 1,100 active satellites and literally millions of man-made pieces of debris, you realize the situation we have in terms of protecting those assets that are up there. And given the potential for offensive anti-satellite tests or future attacks, we have to be more responsive, and we have to be able to launch satellites faster, cheaper, and be able to reconstitute whatever important capabilities those satellites previously provided. We have to be able to create new capability in real time. ORS seeks to do this. It's disruptive in the best sense of that word, and can be a centerpiece to the overall space disaggregation strategy, especially at a time of fiscal restraint. As a potential customer in the future, ORS is important to the local spaceport. And throughout last year, I worked with the Air Force to maintain this program until there was an assurance to continue the congressionally mandated operationally responsive space mission. I successfully included an amendment to the 2014 National Defense Authorization Act that reaffirmed that it was going to be our nation's policy to demonstrate, to acquire, and deploy an effective capability for operationally responsive space, and required an additional mission for ORS. I'm very pleased to say that the Air Force announced earlier this year that this program is here to stay and will continue to deliver tangible benefits both to our warfighters and to our taxpayers. Earlier this year, I introduced another proposal, Senate Bill 2140, to allow commercial companies to take a licensed vehicle out of commercial service and to use it as an experimental platform for developing safety and performance improvements when that's needed. This is a small change, but it's completely consistent with how we deal with federal procedures for commercial airplanes. And it will open the door for companies to launch commercially while still enabling them to test out new innovations. But there are still many challenges ahead if we want to seamlessly exchange ideas and technologies and harness our ingenuity to grow our economy and travel from point to point. The federal government needs to routinely evaluate export controls, such as ITAR and the U.S. munitions list, in a way that's far more sensitive to critical national security concerns, but allows U.S. companies to conduct business with appropriate global customers. It's incumbent upon our federal government to look towards international travel and understand what it'll mean to our nation, for our spaceports, and for our industry, and for humankind. As the Senate begins its work to reauthorize the Commercial Space Launch Act, I hope that you will see my office and me, frankly, as a partner in innovation. None of these amazing opportunities will be possible, however, without the next generation of scientists and engineers. New Mexico's flagship universities are turning out students with each graduating class that will lead the next wave of space innovation. But you know and I know that we aren't doing enough. Jobs are going unfilled and talent is being imported from other countries simply because we are not graduating enough students in STEM fields in this country. Research shows there is an enormous drop-off in interest in STEM in middle school. And so I would encourage all of you, in addition to the incredible things that you're working on, to go back to your communities and look for one way that you can partner with your local schools. Whether it's hosting competitions or participating in after-school programs or just mentoring an intern, all of these things can inspire the kids who will be sitting in your chairs 25 years from now. And so when we come back in 10 years to the Power of 20 conference, we won't be talking about what we can do. We'll be talking about what we have done. I am dedicated to helping the people and programs in New Mexico and all around this country that support America's space policy and our long-term understanding of what's possible. All of these efforts wouldn't be possible without the ingenuity, the determination, and the leadership of those of you in this room here today. It is an enormous source of pride that New Mexico hosts this symposium that brings together the public sector, private industry, and academia to form and expand partnerships across the silos that we still build. The American innovative spirit touches everyone, and I would encourage each of you to keep moving forward, keep inspiring, and keep exploring. I look forward to seeing what the next generation, the next decade has in store for space and flight innovation. And once again, I can't impress upon you enough that I hope that you'll view myself and my office as a partner in expanding space technology development. Robert Goddard once said, "It's difficult to say what's impossible, for the dreams of yesterday are the hopes of today and the reality of tomorrow." Some of the greatest human achievements of space exploration are literally within our grasp. Let's seize those opportunities. Thank you for having me.